we're joined now by Democratic Congressman Adam Smith of Washington. He's the ranking member on the House Armed Services Committee. We did just hear from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt that Trump likes what he's seeing with the current regime led by Delcy Rodriguez in Venezuela, Congressman, which of course is basically the Maduro regime minus Maduro. He's open to, quote, hopefully seeing elections one day. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it seems pretty clear that President Trump had a very narrow focus in terms of wanting to get rid of Maduro in Venezuela. President Trump wants access to the oil. He's been very clear about that. Now, to be fair, I think Secretary Rubio and others in the administration probably have broader goals than that. They would like to see a democratic transition, but there's been no evidence that President Trump cares about that at all. He's been very blunt about it. He wants basically to control Venezuela so he can have better access to their resources. I think that's a horrible policy for the U.S. To engage in for a whole host of reasons, but it certainly seems like President Trump's not interested in democracy or the well-being of the Venezuelan people, or even, frankly, the cocaine smuggling that he was so concerned about a few weeks ago. He wants Venezuela's oil, and he wants to figure out how to get it. And if Delcy Rodriguez can give it to him, you know, what else is there for him to be concerned about?
And so what do you make of this visit today by Maria Corina Machado to the White House? It's closed press, which is kind of different than we see from the visits of some guests to the White House. When the president really wants to demonstrate the fanfare, he's going to do it. And I know that our Kristen Holmes just said the Nobel Peace Prize isn't transferable, but we have heard Machado talk about wanting to give it to Trump. That may be a gesture that he would welcome. What do you make of this visit kind of being tamped down, at least so far? I don't know, maybe that could change.
Yeah, a couple of. Well, first of all, Trump should be happy. He's got the FIFA Peace Prize. I mean, he's got his Peace Prize. Why isn't he happy about that? Second of all, let us just pause for a moment to recognize how pathetic it is that the President of the United States has that type of an ego when we've got all manner of different issues that are really important to the U.S. Drug smuggling, the narco-terrorist groups, you know, the chaos in Venezuela and Latin America, and here we are arguing about how best to assuage President Trump's ego. As far as the Machado meeting, I think the people who do want democracy in Venezuela, obviously that includes Ms. Machado and others, really pushed hard to try to say, don't shut us out, don't completely close off this option. They wanted to get access to Trump. As for why Trump took the meeting, I think he doesn't want to appear to be completely closed off to that option. But the fact that it was a closed meeting, the fact that we're having all this talk about a Nobel Peace Prize, sort of undermines the idea that President Trump is ever going to support Ms. Machado and the democratic movement in Venezuela.
And yet, there was an assessment from within the Trump administration that Machado or another opposition leader, someone in the opposition, may not be positioned to provide stability in Venezuela. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think that might be the case in the short term, depending on what's going on there. But the question is, now that we have the power and influence that we have in Venezuela, are we going to use that to create the atmosphere where it becomes possible? Or is President Trump just going to work with the remnants of the Maduro regime and keep things where they're at? If you want to get to democracy, it's going to take efforts. For one thing, it's going to take us stop telling the Venezuelan people that we want to run their lives and take their oil. That's not going to make them inclined to support anything that we do. So there is a path to getting there, maybe not today. No, I would not advocating taking Ms. Machado, plopping her down in Caracas and trying to say, you're in charge now. Steps need to be taken. The problem is President Trump doesn't seem inclined to take those steps.
Two sources say the Trump administration is preparing to have private military contractors, sort of to allow them to protect oil and energy assets in Venezuela, not to deploy U.S. troops. There doesn't seem to be much of an appetite for that domestically. But I also wonder how you are viewing this move and if you see it as a way to circumvent Congress.
Well, he's circumvented Congress in 1,000 different ways. I think it's more a way for him to try to minimize the risk to him of engaging in this. If you've got U.S. troops in Venezuela and something goes wrong and we lose U.S. service members, they're killed or wounded, that is a bigger problem than if you have a private contractor down there. So I think President Trump is comfortable circumventing Congress in 1,000 different ways. I think here he's just trying to limit his own exposure. And again, let's focus on that policy. The policy of the U.S. is to hire private contractors to go in and take the oil from Venezuela. That's what our foreign policy is now. That is really going to undermine peace and stability in the Western Hemisphere and beyond. If we get back to might makes right, there are no rules, take what you can, others will learn that lesson, and it will undermine peace and security for us in this country and frankly, across the world.
On Iran, I want to ask you about the president saying yesterday that the killings have stopped and crediting his threats to strike, essentially, Iran if they were to continue killing protesters or if they were to execute protesters in particular. Have you received verification that these killings have stopped?
No, and it's highly unlikely that they have, but this is a classic approach from Trump. He wants to basically say that everything that he does has this powerful positive impact on everything. Remember, he's running around saying that there have been no murders in Washington, D.C. since he sent the National Guard in here. That's not true, not even close to true. You have to remember, Trump does not live in the fact-based universe that the rest of us lived in. He lives in a world that he creates. So he sent a threat, Iran responded. There is still a lot of unrest in Iran. I think the more interesting thing is why Trump chose that path at this point instead of, being more belligerent and actually launching military strikes in Iran to support the protesters, which I still think is a possibility. But his comments yesterday, hey, all good, no one's getting killed anymore, I think was maybe a way for him also to sort of step back from drawing a red line that he might not want to cross.
And what about today when the press secretary was asked if she was aware, or she was asked to respond to Iranian state media putting up a threat of the president, essentially saying that next time there won't be a miss. And this was using video of the Butler assassination. That's something that has been out there for a day. I think most of us have seen that. What did you make of her saying she hadn't seen that?
Yeah, I'm surprised you hadn't seen that. Look, this is an issue. I mean, ever since the killing of Soleimani, Iran has been threatening a variety of people in the administration. Even before then, Iran has not been shy about making these types of threats, and it points to the level of tension that exists between Iran and the U.S. And don't get me wrong, the world would be a better place if there was a different government in Iran, an Iranian government that was looking after the Iranian people instead of trying to export revolution and basically destroying their country. There's tension there. How we manage that is really important because we don't want to see it blow up and get worse.
Congressman Adam Smith, thanks for being with us.